Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers. We've got an exciting new shoe here from Brooks dropping into the Glycerin lineup. This is the Glycerin Flex. We've taken it for a first run and here's what we thought. Some quick details then, and the stack height comes in at 36mm in the heel, 30mm in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. On weight, they land at 9.6 ounces or 271 grams in my UK men's 8.5, US 9.5 test shoe. And on price, we only have the US price right now, which is $170. We will add the UK price to the caption once we have it. And it will go on sale on the 1st of February 26. And then we caught up with Danny Orr from the Brooks Innovation team out here at the running event, where he talked us through the Glycerin Flex. This is the Glycerin Flex. Can you talk us through what's going on with the design here, and particularly the midsole has a really interesting setup?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the glycerin and the series of product, right, we start with the glycerin and the level of cushioning and protection we want to provide in that shoe. And then when you think about the Flex, what we've gone and done is we've taken that same level of cushioning and protection and then added the additional level of flexibility and dynamism into the midsole to bring a new experience to the runner. It again uses the DNA-tuned midsole technology, but then as you look at it, right, it's significantly decoupled in the bottom with the big groove in the midfoot to separate the heel and the forefoot, and then that added flexibility in the forefoot of the shoe, really to increase like the level of enjoyment. And we're talking about unleashing your feet, and it feels like that's exactly what this setup does for the consumer.
So this is for people who maybe they want that cushion and protection, but they want to feel a little bit more in control themselves of the ride, right?
Yeah, a little bit more natural.
Yeah.
Not that they will feel the ground all that much,
Yeah.
but they'll have more control over the movements that they're making than what they might do in an everyday training shoe, or certainly than what they would have in a max cushion shoe. We can nerd out on the data of this shoe if we want to, right? But I think the key component, as you said, is that there's that level of protection, there's that level of ground feel.
And then in terms of the sort of geometry we've got, this is less rockered, right, than the Glycerin Max 2?
It is, and generally speaking, the way that we would build those shoes is the higher you get, the more rocky you end up having, because you have more real estate to do that, but then also you need that assisted transition to make those higher shoes work. Yeah. The lower the rocker is, the far less dynamic they are, and they start to feel just a little bit stodgy, right? But when we get a little bit lower, generally it's a little bit more natural stance for the foot, and as I said, part of that is the real estate, but then also just how the foot wants to be set up.
And up top, what have we got going on up top in terms of the uppers and the heel package?
Yeah, so this is a flattened upper, and I think the nice thing about it is that you can get really form-fitting, right? So the idea is that we really do want that idea of flexibility all the way around. So reducing as many layers as possible and getting as close to the foot as possible is what we've gone and done with a flattener. Yes, there's certain cues around collar foams and things like that that are obviously important from a comfort standpoint, but the rest of it is really driven by that notion of second skin foot, as close to the foot as we can get, just to maximize, again, that overall flexibility that we're trying to get in the Glycerin Flex.
And it does have a really nice kind of slipper-like feel up top, which I think adds to that overall feeling of the Flex. In terms of the weight, am I right in thinking that this is lighter than a Glycerin Max 2 as well?
So yes, no, lighter than a Glycerin Max 2 and a Glycerin, both of them.
Yeah, and you can feel it on the feet.
You can. You certainly can.
And is that part of the reason why we've gone for this sort of setup of heel package where you've got the internal pads rather than something that's a bit more kind of trad sort of in terms of that kind of heel cushioning?
Yeah, I think overall what we're trying to do is we're trying to be consistent in relation to the feel of it, right? But when you utilize the different textiles and then you utilize the different constructions that come with a walk knit or come with a woven or whatever the case may be, you're forced to utilize different techniques internally to provide that comfort and that lockdown fit. Ideally for us, we want them all to fit the same. But choosing the different upper technologies mean that you need to vary the way that those things come together just a little bit.
And then last bit on the outsole, what have we got going on with in terms of the grip and the rubber?
Yeah, so this is our Rotac compound, right, which is something that we've used for a good amount of time. We know that it's great from a traction standpoint. We know that it's really good from a durability standpoint, and you can see that across the majority of the Brooks shoes today. So we're just back from our first run, 10Ks in the
Brooks Glycerin Flex. Nick, first up, how has the fit been for you during that?
It is. It's good. It's spot on. I think Brooks is a brand that are really consistent on sizing. So I've got my normal size here, UK 9, US 10. I've got exactly the amount of room I'd expect around the toes, same as in every other Glycerin shoe and all that. You've got this one-piece upper, which I quite like. I don't love the cushioning around the back myself. Just this kind of wedge of cushioning that sometimes I can feel a bit in an annoying way, but it was okay on the run today. And yeah, upper feels quite nice all round. How about you?
This is similar that you're going to get in the Hyperion Max 3, isn't it? Brooks are sort of going for these sort of internal padded.
Yeah, exactly. And they're more booty style almost. It's a one-piece upper, right? Even though it is, you have got a separate tongue.
Yeah. For me, again, I ran in my regular Brooks size, UK 8.5. That's US 9.5, and I would describe the fit as kind of really sort of nice and flexy in the forefoot. I find it quite hugging, but one of those one-piece uppers do move around, so it sort of holds, but I don't feel constricted, which is really nice. It's a bit like slipper-like. Like I feel like it's a bit sort of harks back to some of the Nike Free shoes for that upper feel, sort of almost like slipper-like. But I've got good heel hold, and
it's a lot less structured around the heel than a lot of Brooks shoes as well. Brooks, you get a very big, strict internal heel count on lots of their cushion shoes, and you haven't got it here, in keeping with, I guess, the more flexible, less controlled idea of the shoe.
Yeah, but overall, I think I would be happy going true to size in this shoe.
100%.
So onto the run test, and we just did around 10k out here on the river walk in San Antonio.
Yeah,
it's really quite a nice little path to run, isn't it?
Beautiful. When we were yesterday, we ran on the walking path, which is lovely, but a bit up and down with steps. We're on the cycle path today, which is obviously much smoother and much better for running. And we did about half that run with the group, Brooks group, 5k or 6k with them, and then we just did a little bit of extra at the end ourselves to do a little bit of faster stuff and test out the shoe. It's more like our easy paces kind of thing.
So we put it through.
Bit of a range.
Decent range of paces, probably not out and out fastest. You did a little bit of
I did one stride, but mostly we just, it's like, basically this is a daily trainer. Did some daily training paces, going down to a bit slower than that when we were with the group on a nice social run.
So obviously, the key feature here is this flexi sole, which it's kind of, we call it sort of decoupled, but it's got this big kind of S curve down the middle, and these two bits kind of are designed to sort of move independently. How did that feel on the run, Nick? Did you actually notice it? Did it sort of change the ride for you?
So I
didn't. Aware of it?
So early on I wasn't aware of it. I did a really easy pace. Didn't feel too different. You've still got the primary feeling for me is heel strike. It's the big wedge of DNA tuned at the back, which is the same as in the Glycerin Max. And then when we got up to our easy paces, as opposed to going a bit slower, I did feel it. And I mentioned to Kieran, it felt like it was a point in the run when I was just ticking along at the pace I would do my easy runs at, where it felt like I could feel almost a layering effect in the forefoot, hitting this pod, then this pod, then this pod, then this pod, and it did feel distinct. Like it didn't particularly good or particularly bad or anything. It just felt different for sure. And I mentioned to you like on the run, it was a feeling almost like in Pilates when you're told to slowly lower down one vertebrae at a time, and it felt a little bit like that. So you definitely got a bit more connection to that part of the shoe for sure. I think this kind of decoupled, and you see it a bit more in trail shoes, I think, where there's a bit more focus on having that contact with the ground, and it did make you a bit more aware of the different parts of my forefoot. And then when I did a stride, less so again, it was more just what did the foam feel like, which is the other big thing. It's the DNA tuned foam, which is a foam we like, but
I'm a big fan of the foam.
Because you have got the soft heel, but isn't too squishy.
Yeah.
And then you do get a little bit more response. I still don't think it's a responsive foam in the forefoot. It's very much a daily trainery feel for me, but it's a bit different.
Yeah, and I think we both. Well, I certainly felt it when I was moving at what I would sort of describe as 8-minute miles for me is like a cruisy, really easy pace, a pace that I could go for sort of ever in. It felt nice and smooth and a bit more natural. When I tried to keep up with Nick, how we got up to like 7-minute miles, which is not my marathon pace, but it's kind of, it's pushing it a bit more for me. I just felt they got a little bit more sluggish, and it made me think I'd position this as, something that's going to be nice and comfortable kind of road protection for the easier miles. I'm not sure it's going to have much when you try and push it up the paces.
No, it's going to be another day, and the interesting thing with this is it's still really cushioned. So this is not a minimalist shoe in the classic sense. You do, and I'd say the heel for me feels very typical in general of the cushion shoes these days. The forefoot does feel a little bit different, and I guess this is a shoe that it's not a shoe I'm expected to do everything in. This is probably going to be almost a rotation option for a different feel for the same kind of runs you're already doing in your Max cushion shoes. So it would be, or if you're someone who prefers it slightly, but I would say it's not wildly different. It's a subtle feeling, I think we were saying on the run. Like you definitely feel, I think, a different flex in the forefoot, but you don't and it's not really rockered like lots of shoes.
Well, that's what I was going to say with the Glycerin Max. I thought that one of the differences is you feel the rocker more in the Glycerin.
That's
Max.
much more rockered, yeah.
And that bigger stack, I kind of noticed feeling a bit more off the ground. So you've got a bit more connection with this one, right?
Definitely under the forefoot. It's the kind of thing I just said to get over time. It's maybe the kind of shoe as a heel striker snapping through. I might get a little bit of forefoot discomfort, but you do feel obviously the individual parts of your forefoot a bit more. And I know that's the thing that some people really like. It's the idea of like, well, I can feel those different bones and muscles in the forefoot, and I'm strengthening them on the run, and I'm using them, which you don't feel so much if you're on a big shoe. Like I'm pretty agnostic on that thing. I don't really mind big cushion shoes, big stiff shoes. I don't really mind if it's flexible. But what I like about this is it's flexible, but I am getting the protection I want in a daily trainer at the heel. And this is a 36 stack height heel, which is my sweet spot kind of remains that 36 to 40. There are a couple of Max cushion shoes I really like that do hit like 45, but generally I don't necessarily want to go all the way up there. So this is quite nicely balanced.
It doesn't feel too heavy as well. I think is another point for that size. It actually felt pretty light on the foot. And I don't know whether sometimes I feel like that comes from the way the kind of uppers feel as well, because there's a bit of a freedom in it.
It's definitely a lot lighter than standard Glycerin Max.
Yeah.
Especially with the Glycerin Max 2 getting a bit heavier. I think this is a nice thing. So yeah, I'd say I was interested. Yeah, like I didn't do enough miles. I'd say at like my normal paces there. I think this one's getting huge, but for a first run, I did notice that at stages definitely, and that will be interesting to people who maybe are not a bit put off by the big rocket shoes these days.
Yeah. Okay. So we've obviously done about kind of, well, it's closing in close enough to an hour, right?
Yeah,
in the shoe, about 6.5 miles, 10k. So very, very early first impressions of this shoe. Nick, what are you saying?
I think this is setting out with a goal of being something different for daily training. And on performance, I'm not going to talk about it too much. I think we'll talk about that in the full review a bit more because it didn't really do much. I think it will be fine as a daily trainer for that kind of thing. Like it ticked over nicely, the foam felt good. And we'll talk a bit more about variety of rides we get out for long runs and stuff in our full review. But I think it will achieve the main thing, which is to be a bit different from the other shoes in the Glycerin range and the cushion shoes out there in general. There's not a lot of shoes I think that particularly like this. It does have a slightly different feel. I wouldn't say it's crazily different.
No, it's quite subtle, I think. It's quite nuanced,
but if you like the idea of it, you will get that different feeling in the forefoot in particular, which I think some people will like. And so I think it'll be an interesting addition to the range, which is getting quite busy now.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be our job in a little bit to work out exactly how this positions up against like the Triumph and the Glycerin Max 2 with more detail. I think the one thing I got from that run, soft cushion, comfortable, easy.
Yeah.
It feels nice on the foot. It ticks a lot of those boxes with that kind of slightly more flex feel. Again, when my head goes to these things, I always think, this might be a shoe that I would put on if I wanted to, middle of a 100 miler, and it's going to just deliver nice, happy
feel.
comfort and a slightly different feel, changing it up from, maybe deeper into one of those, you'd go to the full-on cushion. This would give you a little bit more ground feel, but it's still very, very protective.
It still has that distinctive Brooks feel for me, which is always that. It's cushioned, it's pretty stable for a cushion shoe. The foam stays cushioned and responsive throughout. It never bottoms out, never get bottoming out of a Brooks shoe, I find. And like I say, it is that, the whole idea about getting running shoe rotation, you get different stresses on your foot, is in a good way.
Yeah.
And this is kind of, different stress on the foot. So I enjoy ticking around in it, and I think it's probably doing what it's aiming to do. It's how that's going to be perceived on the market at large, and whether there's enough difference there. Like, I think some people will be really into the idea of the shoe, but if you're talking about the person who walks off the street normally and just wants a shoe, is just going to come across to them.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be interesting how different is the standard Glycerin.
Yeah.
So it's different to the Glycerin Max for sure. Yeah. I haven't run the standard Glycerin for a while. I'll be interested to see how that goes.
So there you have it. That has been our first run out here in San Antonio. Big thanks to Brooks who brought us out here, gave us the shoe early to have a test.
Yeah.
We will go away and do many, many more miles in this. We will do a bunch of head-to-heads as well to bring you the sort of finer detail about how this shoe stacks up against the others within the Brooks range and outside. But for now,
Go have a shower.
Gonna have a shower, stop coughing and spluttering, and we will see you again.